Welcome to Into the Fire, a Burning Coal Theater Company podcast series.
Hi, this is Jerome Davis. I'm the artistic director of Burning Coal Theater Company in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'd like to welcome everyone to Into the Fire, the Burning Coal Theater Company podcast series on all things theatrical. Today we have a special guest, Susan Gross, who will be directing for the first time. Susan, is that correct?
I guess my own, here, especially here, I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
directed before, but
you have. Okay,
I've
okay.
mainly assistant directed in my past.
Right.
So, I
It's not
directed shows
entirely new. Yeah.
yeah, not entirely new. I directed in college, and then out of college, I stage managed a lot and I assistant directed a lot.
Well,
Um,
that's good preparation for it. The work that you're doing right now for us is part of our KidsWrite series, which runs next week. Next week, for those of you who are listening to this 50 years from now, would have been Friday and Saturday, May 24th and 25th. So a little over a week away. We're getting close, and that is KidsWrite at Burning Coal Theater Company, a series of plays written by young people ranging from sixth grade to 12th grade. And Susan, first of all, welcome. And secondly, I just wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey in the arts, and how it led you to Raleigh, North Carolina.
okay. Well, I guess I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, studied theater there at Roanoke College, did community theater there. Showtimers Theater was one of them. And then some friends and I started a theater company together. We called Gamut for a while, and then I think it changed to Off the Rails. And our first production was Agnes of God, where I played Agnes. And then from then I moved to Boston and I did some theater in Boston. So I did a lot of shows there, worked at Lyric Stage.
Mm. As an actor.
Yeah, as an
Um,
actor. Yeah, a lot of different theater companies, Zeitgeist Stage, which is Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater.
yeah,
And then,
where I've worked as well.
yeah, I think we have some of that in common, like places we worked. Oh yeah, and a new repertory theater, which sadly closed, I think, this year.
I'm going to bring Johannah Edwards into the conversation now. Johannah is the second director for KidsWrite, and she will be directing the two plays that you are not directing, Susan. Johannah, welcome, and we're glad that you were able to join us. I'm going to continue with Susan just for a moment, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
introduce Johannah Edwards as well. Susan, so acting primarily in
Mhm.
Virginia, in your home state of Virginia, and then moving north to
Yeah,
Massachusetts.
yep, Boston, and then from Boston I went to New York City, which
Mhm.
I actually had done a show in Boston called The Vietnamization of New Jersey. It was a Christopher Durang play.
Sure.
And I worked with the director there, and then he wanted to do the show in New York, and so I ended up coming to New York and doing the show. And it was an amazing experience because I got to work with Christopher Durang. He was there at the first rehearsal.
Mhm.
It's how I joined Equity. Yeah, it was just like an amazing experience. So I stayed in New York after that and continued to create theater after that.
And then you've moved to you live in Durham, I believe. Is that correct? And
Yes, I moved to Durham, North Carolina. I wanted to be kind of back to my roots, like be closer to my family. Um, yeah, and just sort of, I don't know, just like have a different lifestyle here. And it's just been great. Like I love it here.
was it COVID that drove you down here, or would you have migrated this way eventually anyway, do you think?
Maybe I would have because my husband and I talked about moving kind of just, I don't know, having more space. We got a dog. I know we were like, we kind of moved for our dog. Um,
You can have a dog in New York, but you can have a big dog in North Carolina.
well, we do have a small dog, but she's not the easiest dog to walk. So, anyway, we talked about we love New York and we still go back like probably twice a year. But yeah, we just wanted to I don't know, have more space and be close to family. And I guess the pandemic did sort of give us that impetus to like make that change because it was difficult that first year in New York. It was very,
Yeah.
very stressful. We stayed there from till 2021, really. Yeah. And then we moved here at the start of 2022.
A lot of people are doing it. They've just come out with a survey that said for the first time in recorded memory, the rural areas, towns of under 250,000, have shown an increase, and towns over 1 million have showed a significant decrease in populations across the country, not just New York or L.A.
Yeah.
or Chicago, but really across the country. And just one last question: when you were at New Rep, was Rick Lombardo there? Was that during his? He
Yep,
was.
he was there,
Did
yeah.
did he direct you?
He did not. But yeah, but I did, he was there at the time. He was the artistic director.
When he was teaching at Fordham, a friend of mine and I hired him to direct us in a play that we self-produced at 29th Street Repertory Theater. And Rick was just brilliant. He had such a keen eye for detail. And then he got hired at what I believe, if I remember right, was a very large community theater in Ohio. And I thought, well, I'll never see that guy again. And then the next thing I know, he's running New Rep in Newton, Massachusetts, I think, where my in-laws live. So I followed his career for a long time, and love him as a person and as a director as well. We're going to now introduce Johannah Edwards, who is, as we said, the director of the two KidsWrite plays that Susan will not be directing. Johannah, welcome, and tell us a little bit. You have a trajectory that's not dissimilar to Susan's in terms of how you where you started out and where you went to and where you came back to and that sort of thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that path?
Yeah, well, hi, thanks for having me. I started out right here. I grew up in the Triangle. I went to Eastwick High School in Wendell, North Carolina. And then I went to NYU, New York, a little bit of Minneapolis.
Mm.
Um, and then when I was coming back here in 2007, just for like a pit stop of like, oh, let me go home for a little bit to apply to grad schools and then get the heck out of Raleigh. I emailed my old friend Jerry Davis at Burning Coal Theater and said, "Do you have anything? I'm coming to Raleigh." And Jerry put me to work, and I never left.
Yeah. Well, we're that's our gain for sure. When you were at NYU, what were you studying? You were in the Tisch School.
Yes, I was in the Tisch School of the Arts, and I went to Playwrights Horizons Theater School, where I went in to study directing, but then because of the magic of that program, where you in your first year you have to like really study all parts of theater and practice all parts of theater, I learned that I was also a designer. And then because I wanted to give up acting, I had to take a class instead called Creating Original Work. And the assignment of that class was be interesting on stage for 10 minutes. And it was basically before we called it Devise Theater, it was how to devise theater class. So I got into devising that way, along with my path of the 4-year directing program. And kind of one of the things they hammer into you there is that like you have to be prepared for nobody to hire you to direct and to if you want to get your work out there, you have to work hard. And so that's how I came to be a self-producing artist. And so that experience of trying to produce myself and get my own work out there for so long kind of like led me into as the Women's Theater Festival was forming, like my skills were of use. And so that's kind of how I grew into my position
I want
here.
to talk about WTF in just a minute, but I want to hone in a little bit on that idea about creating your own work. Was there a particular uh, professor at NYU that was advocating for that, or was that a department-wide emphasis?
No, that's the magical, wonderful Marlene Pennison.
Mm-hmm.
It was her project and her baby, and she is such a genius. She's like out in the Southwest desert now, but she still exists. But
Now,
yeah, it was her thing, and it the way she structured it all, like we created our own rubrics, we created our own like parameters for what success looks like. So like this taught me how to produce theater too, right? Like
sure,
that
sure.
like you're creating your own problems that you have to solve, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's a tremendous gift for artists, I think. I don't know if people your and Susan's age entirely understand that, but before your generation, that just wasn't conceived of, hardly at all. I'm not saying there weren't any, but generally speaking, the model was train, go to New York or LA, wait by the phone, and that was what you did if you wanted to be an actor or a director. And the concept of no, we're going to build our own work, and we're going to do it on our own schedule, and with the funding that we're able to generate, is a unique and in the history of theater a very new idea. So if Miss Pennison is responsible for that somewhat, then she's given a great gift to our industry, I think, because so much of the good work that's being done now is being done in in that form. Susan, you have worked in that way too. The first thing you brought to me was Ruby, which was a self-created piece, but you had worked in that manner before. Is that correct, or was Ruby the first such piece that you had created?
Um, it was the first solo show I created, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd written some plays before that, but yeah, it was the first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I worked with a theater company in New York called Tongue in Cheek, and they produced it for a couple of festivals that took place in New York. And yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites, and you may not know this, but Johannah was involved in, I think, our first second stage series. Ruby was in last year's second stage series, but Johannah created a piece with some other artists called "Flee This Place," um, which I thought, from a marketing standpoint, was not the best title ever. I was I was in favor of "Get the hell out of here." No, just kidding. But "Flee This Place" remains one of the most unique pieces. Can you talk a little bit about that, Johannah? Just for those 72 people who actually saw it
Yeah.
and are still around, I'd love to.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were the 72 people who saw the original version at the Minnesota Fringe a few a few years
Yes.
before that.
Yeah.
So it was an idea that started many, like back in 2004 or 2005. I started kind of developing the idea, which was around Medea and Antigone together in hell, basically. And that the characters from I was interested in the named role of character of King Creon, and this like imagining a world where the same king was responsible for both of their fates, and all of this kind of like tragedy and turmoil and unfinishedness that happened. And so yeah, that was like the basis for it.
So you were going back to the Greeks
Yeah.
and using those ideas. Susan, Ruby was a much more personal piece for you.
Mhm.
And did you feel like, as a writer, that you were accessing, personal details exclusively, or did it feel to you like that there were, um, universal elements to the piece? And how did you feel about the audience response to that very personal piece about the loss of a child?
Yeah, I do feel like it had some universal, I guess, truths in it, or things people could relate to. In fact, I had audience members tell me that, even though they hadn't gone through the play was basically my journey after post miscarriage. And I had some, I guess, audience members tell me, even though they hadn't experienced that they did understand, that sort of the loss of something, or those like unfulfilled things you may never experience, like dreams, hopes and wishes that you'll never be able to have, and coming to terms with not having those things in your life. And then some of the other things I talked about in the show, like anxiety, or like feeling judged by others, like who didn't quite relate, or those questions you would always get asked, like, when are you going to have kids, or all those like things that people don't necessarily think about um when they're speaking to you about something. Well, people think it's like a harmless sort of like comment to say, like, oh, when are you going to have kids? Like after you get married. So I had a lot of
Yeah,
audience members tell me they related to that.
yeah, yeah. It's also true that while we haven't all had the experience, I think almost everyone has had the experience of being concerned about it, of imagining themselves in that situation, especially parents, people who actually are parents. So
Yeah.
um, I want to swing around and talk a little bit about KidsWrite now. Susan, can you talk about the two shows that you're directing just a little bit, and I mean, just give us a thumbnail about what the two. These are all really crazy and wonderful, and in most cases funny plays. But tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, I love the two pieces I'm working on. They're very they're different, but there's a lot of similar, I guess, themes in a lot of them. The first one is Disaster at Lakeview. Um, and it is written by Avery Seppala. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. And it's like a farce, and I believe she said it was sort of inspired by The Play That Goes Wrong, which you can definitely see those elements in. And so it's about kind of like a newsroom where, the manager comes in, he's going to get this promotion as long as everything goes okay, but everything does not go okay. So it's a lot of fun, and it has those farce elements, like, that you'd see in like Noises Off or something like that.
Right.
And then my second piece is Regrets of Man, and that's written by Noah Howard. And this is about, basically a kind of this shrewd kind of, I don't know, a businessman who's not been the nicest in his life. And then he meets a nun at a bus stop, and they have this conversation, and it sort of like, changes both of them. So I feel like it's been really fun to watch the actors bring these scripts to life and see where it takes us. It's been really, really fun.
And how about you, Johanna? What about the two that you've been given to work with?
Oh, they're fantastic. Totally different, totally fantastic. Um, the first one is To Be Deceased, which was written by a group of six students. Um, and it is very Agatha Christie, Knives Out inspired murder mystery with a lot of hijinks and whodunits and mysterious voices and murder.
Hmm.
And the other is like a sweet, very dear ensemble piece called Through the Years, about a group of three best friends who meet up at a bar every 5 years, and these little glimpses of their relationship severing over time.
Mm.
And
Not
it's
that.
not funny. It's very
Mhm.
deep and dark, and it excites me because I love that stuff like this is coming out of a 17-year-old's mind, and that we're all listening, because these are the things that 17-year-olds actually think about. It's not G or PG rated inside their minds, right?
They're not just thinking about the things that adults tell them they should be thinking about.
Yeah.
They're seeing the world and responding to it in ways that I think is actually quite heartening right now,
Yeah.
especially. But okay,
Process it by writing a play, and a good
yeah,
one at that. Yeah.
yeah. It's true. Most of the young people, from my experience, have not had much experience with theater. They've seen films, they've seen television, and listened to music, for instance, or read literature. But the idea of actually seeing something in three dimensions right in front of you, and especially something that you imagined, that started off as a memory in your mind, or as a vision in your mind, perhaps, is a unique experience for young people, and something that I think is one of the most important programs that we do at Burning Coal. Young people are often given the chance to read about something or to talk about something, but they're not often given a chance to create something, and not just part of the way, but fully create it, from beginning to end, and see the results of that. And I think, as such, that KidsWrite is a very, very important program. Well, I want to wrap up. We're at about the half-hour mark. I wanted to ask Susan, are you working on a new piece now? I think I heard you say that recently. And if so, is it something you want to talk about yet?
Yeah, I've been working on a piece called Just Kids. It's sort of an extension of Ruby, my solo show. But I have more characters. I wrote like a full-length version, and then I wrote like a short version of it. But it basically is about just when you're older and you hit those like 30s, 40s, and you have friends that have kids, and maybe you don't have kids, or you couldn't have kids, or you chose not to have kids, just sort of navigating the friendships and the complexities that go along with it.
That sounds fascinating. Are you 80% done, 90% done,
Well,
4% done?
I kind of, yeah, I did finish both, but yeah, definitely like I go back and think about things I might want to edit or change. But like the short piece, I feel like it's pretty solid, and then the full length, I'm still sort of editing.
Well, I'd love to have a peek at it when you get done, if you feel comfortable with that. Johanna, the Women's Theater Festival is in full swing now. I'm surprised you had time to do this today, actually.
Well, no, we're not. We switched to an every other year format, so we
Oh,
actually aren't in full swing until May 2025. We have 12 months to get back into full swing, which
I
is
didn't
like
realize that.
delicious.
I thought I saw that y'all were doing something recently. Maybe I misunderstood that.
Yeah, we did a production of Dance Nation. Well, we did the regional premiere of
Yeah.
Claire Barron's Dance Nation. So we decided to work in a biennial cycle, and to instead of doing more, do less with more. So we decided to put our entire operating budget into the production of Dance Nation so that we could pay everyone a living wage. So actors made 300 a week. We never rehearsed more than 20 hours a week. And we tried to like make a high quality production where everyone was being paid as much as we possibly could. And I feel so proud of that. and that they're all local artists, right, who are like reaping those benefits and showcasing their work. And then, our festival in the off years is about putting our community in conversation with a national community of theater artists who care about gender parity and social justice and all that.
Fascinating, very fascinating. One of the things I admire about the WTF is the degree to which you are willing to shake up the model. Not just set something and then go after it. And I think that seems to be working for you. Did you feel good about the response to Dance Nation from a box office standpoint?
No.
No,
it's not.
Really?
I definitely have been struggling to understand audience trends coming out of the pandemic. And I think it's just we were so successful from the start of the pandemic. Like we increased our revenue 156% in 2020. Like who? And so I think I just like as a producer have been struggling with like how to like keep like I got that one right. How do I get the next one right? And I think that one of the things with box office trends and like, I think if we had a third weekend, we would have really started to hit momentum. I think that it's about seeing the changes in the market and that and our media climate is different now. Like there's not the state of things to like get you that audience bump if you get on there. There's not the News
That's
and Observer.
Big loss, yeah. There's no What's Up in the News and Observer. They're not really running a calendar in the Independent, the Indie Week. So yeah, there's a lot of that loss, and it's a shame because Dance Nation is a fantastic play, and I've heard nothing but good things about your production. So keep up the good work, and I think your audience will find you eventually.
I just got the rights to another very hot title, and so I'm trying to like think about how to bring it to life.
Fabulous.
I'll tell you off the air.
let me know if we can help in any way.
I would love that. Yes.
Susan Gross, thank you for joining us. One of the two directors of KidsWrite 2024, and Johannah Edwards is the other half of that team. Thank you both for joining us. Reminder that KidsWrite again runs next Friday and Saturday. That happens to be May the 24th and 25th at 7 p.m. at Burning Coal Theater. Tickets at www.burningcoal.org or 919-834-4001. And they're $10 a piece. So come on down and see what the next generation has in store. Thank you both.
Thank you.